All right, so in this episode of Tiny Tales with Trisha, we are going to read book 5 of the Odyssey, and we're also going to look at some maps to help us conceptualize where this story is taking place. So in book 1, Athena convinces her father Zeus that it's time to help Odysseus go, and Athena goes down to Earth to talk to Telemachus, Odysseus' son, to give him strength and courage to fight for his father. Books 2 through 4, Telemachus gives the suitors an ultimatum, and then he goes searching for his father. Now, Odysseus doesn't actually enter the story until book 5. And so in our reading in class, we're going to skip books 2 through 4, which is Telemachus' journeys. They are in the graphic novel if you want to see it. And we're going to start with book 5 when we meet Odysseus for the first time. Before I start reading, I am going to show you some maps of the area to help you visualize where we are. So in the virtual text, there are maps on pages 16 through 17. All right, so here we go. I've previously shown you this map that shows you where Turkey is in relation to Ithaca and Greece. But over here, it's kind of the same thing twice. Calypso, okay, so this is where he has been trapped for 7 years. Okay, so it's far from home. He's like gone past where his home was, and he's over here. So this is where Odysseus is in the Mediterranean Sea. So he's trapped on this island. All he can really see is water. It's a tiny island. And he's just become despondent because he is all by himself. All right, we're going to jump ahead to Calypso. Okay, so in book 5, at the start, Odysseus had been lost at sea for 10 years. He has been held captive by Calypso for 7 of these years. He is despondent and yearning for home. So even though I told you that Calypso was an antagonist, and she is, she's actually depicted a lot throughout history. Like, for example, this is an oil painting from 1906 by George Hitchcock. She's depicted as this really sweet and beautiful and wonderful woman. So you might be asking yourself, how can a sweet nymph, how can this wonderful person be an antagonist? So what's happening is our modern sensibilities and our modern demand for equal rights, our demand for, consent and for mutual respect, they don't really sit too well with this part of the story. So if you're reading this and things start to feel off, okay, you're not wrong. All right, book 5. For 7 of the 10 years Odysseus has spent wandering the Mediterranean Sea, he has been held captive by the goddess Calypso on her island. As book 5 begins, Zeus sends the god Hermes to tell Calypso to release Odysseus. However, she is only to help him build a raft. He must sail for 20 days before landing on the island of Scheria, where he will be helped in his efforts to return home. So I showed you on the map, he's far from home on this island. He's not going to be like snap delivered home. He has to still make his own way home, but at least Calypso's going to let him go. All right, so Hermes, the messenger god, has come down from Mount Olympus. There we go. No words were lost on Hermes the wayfinder, who bent to tie his beautiful sandals on, ambrosial, golden, that carry him over water or over endless land in a swish of the wind, and took the wand with which he charms asleep, or when he wills awake, the eyes of men. So this sentence is a depiction of Hermes, the messenger god. He has these gorgeous golden sandals that he ties on, and they're like gladiator sandals, if you remember that trend from several years ago. You lace them up to your knees, and they have wings on them. So if you remember also a couple years ago, well, like 6-7 years ago, when those shoes with the wings on them were popular, that is kind of going back to this idea of Hermes. All right, so Hermes is the messenger god. He runs over the water. He runs over the land, and he has a wand. And so this is how you wouldn't see him running past. He has his wand. He makes people go to sleep, and then he wakes them up. So he's magic. He's a god. So wand in hand, he paced into the air, shot from Pieria down to sea level, and veered to skim the swell. A gull patrolling between the wave crests of the desolate sea will dip to catch a fish and douse his wings. No higher above the whitecaps Hermes flew until the distant island lay ahead. Then, rising shoreward from the violet ocean, he stepped up to the cave. Now, I've briefly mentioned to you that this is epic poetry. This is a poem. So the language is meant to be very descriptive, very detailed. There's a lot of imagery. And so what just happened in that sentence is we're supposed to visualize Hermes running across the ocean. But he's not like swimming. He's only going as low as like when you see a seabird dive in to grab a fish. That's as low as he's going. So he's just like skimming just kind of the top of the water, running to tell Calypso to let Odysseus go. Divine Calypso, because she is a goddess. She's not one of the Olympians, but she is a goddess. Divine Calypso, the mistress of the isle, was now at home. Upon her hearthstone, a great fire blazing, scented the farthest shores with cedar smoke and smoke of thyme, and singing high and low in her sweet voice, and before her loom a weaving, she passed her golden shuttle to and fro. So this goddess who's trapping Odysseus, what is she doing? She's singing and she's weaving, having a nice peaceful time. A deep wood grew outside, with summer leaves of alder and black poplar and pungent cypress. Ornate birds here rested their stretched wings, horned owls, falcons, cormorants, long-tongued beachcombing birds, and followers of the sea. So she lives on an island, and this island is a forest filled with all of these wonderful birds. Around the smooth-walled cave, a crooking vine held purple clusters under ply of green. So she's in a cave with grapevine coming through it. So there's grapes growing into her cave. Remember, this is ancient times, so that's normal. And 4 springs, bubbling up near one another, shallow and clear, took channels here and there through beds of violets and tender parsley. So she's in a forest, she's in a cave, there are springs, natural water, just traveling beautiful vines. She has flowers, she has herbs. This sounds kind of like a paradise. So we have a beautiful goddess in this island paradise. What's the problem? All right, so we're continuing this description of Calypso's island, and it says, even a god who found this place would gaze and feel his heart beat with delight. So Hermes did. So this island where Calypso lives and Odysseus has been trapped is so beautiful that it impresses even a god like Hermes. So Hermes enters this realm and is like, this is so beautiful. This is like paradise. But when he had gazed his fill, he entered the wide cave. Now, face to face, the magical Calypso recognized him, as all immortal gods know one another on sight, though seeming strangers far from home. But he saw nothing of the great Odysseus, who sat apart, as 1,000 times before, and racked his own heart groaning, with eyes wet, scanning the bare horizon of the sea. So Odysseus is not in the cave with Calypso. He is out on the shore, looking at the sea, crying, groaning, desiring home. So Calypso invites Hermes to her table for food and drink and asks why he has come. Hermes explains that he has brought an order from Zeus that Calypso must not detain Odysseus any longer, but must send him on his way home. She reluctantly obeys, agreeing to offer Odysseus her advice about how to get home. So, I mean, Calypso's not like an aggressive, violent goddess. She is listening. She's willing to let him go home. She lives in this gorgeous island paradise, but we should still be wondering, like, why is Odysseus not happy? And this is where this tiny tale will stop. We will pick up with the next installment when we see Calypso tell Odysseus he gets to go home, and when we start to realize why Odysseus is so unhappy with her.